back to Let Glory Shine. I'm so glad that you're here. I am your host, Martha Glory, and today I don't have a guest. I want to just speak from the heart about my healing journey. Healing from trauma is a intentional, uh, purpose-driven strategy of understanding yourself better and understanding who God created you to be. And I have been in a season of understanding what that really means to be called and to become the person that God created me to be. Like, what does that mean? And what I have come to understand is that it's more than just what's my purpose, right? Or it's more than, what am I going to be when I grow up? When you discover who the creator and maker of the heaven and the earth created you to be, you understand that there is no one in the world that can do what you're meant to do. And I've had to step into that. And that's a scary step. That's a challenging step. That's a step that it hasn't been done lightly because it's frightful, right? It's a faith walk of understanding, who does God say I am and who has God called me to be? Understanding that my personal relationship with God has been developing over these last 14 years of walking and understanding that I had to do the work to heal my past traumas in order to become a better version of myself, so that I would be a better version for my family, for my community, for all that I come in contact with. And this morning I went to church and I really felt that the message was really important. And I wanted to share something that Pastor John Mark shared at our church this morning. I attend a non-denominational church here in Chapel Hill called Grace Life. And it's been my church home for the last 14 years or so. My community, it's where I get poured into and fill my cup when I'm in town and I'm able to attend. But it's also, like I said, it's more than just a church family. It's my community. It's where I invest my own self, my means, my financial means, my spiritual means in order to grow others and to be poured into. So anyway, what was shared this morning is when someone's broken, we'll try to fix it. And when we see someone hurting, we want to help them. And when you see someone valuable in all their brokenness, in all of their hurt, in all of their pain, you'll want to serve them. And hearing that this morning almost brought me to tears, because that's the season of life that I'm in, that God's called me to be in, is to serve others and to help battle angels to take their next step in their own healing journey, whatever that is for them. But meeting them where they're at and understanding that they are the most valuable person to God, just like I am. And so when we see people as valuable, rather than seeing their brokenness, seeing their pain, seeing their hurt, and we can just see their value, that's how we change lives. And becoming a servant of that and understanding that that's a really, really big, courageous role to step into, but understanding that I'm equipped for that and I am ready for that, right? Like all of the things that I have identified and I have gone through on my own healing journey has equipped me for helping others to take their next steps. And yes, I get to do that as a trauma-informed coach. I get to do that when I speak from stage. I get to do that writing my books. But there's something about doing it just in life, like where you show up, where you, your friendship circles, being that person, because that's just who you are. And it's not a facade. It's not a caricature. It's not a career choice. Like, it's just who you are. And God had put on my heart many years ago that, you know, in the end of the day, like my epitaph, I want my epitaph to say, like, I made the world better everywhere I went. And I just, in my soul, I want to always leave people, places, things better than I found them, by just being who God created me to be. And that's a really humbling and amazing and scary place to be, understanding what that all means. But when you do the work, it just becomes who you are. And then I can breathe easier knowing that, no, this is legit who I am. This is who God's called me to be. This is who my community is asking me to be, because this is just who I am. And so it really had me thinking, after hearing that this morning, how do I live that out in my real life? And as soon as the service was over, I got to have a conversation with somebody that I've spoken very little to over the last year or so. But we got in a conversation about what it means to grow in the darkness. He was sharing that he's gone through a season of really sitting in the dark and in the yuck and in the pain, and how helpful that has been for his own growth. And I was sharing with him that, yes, like that's where the majority of my healing was done, and my growth was done in the dark, in the yuck, in the painful, in going back and healing the traumas that happened to me at a very young age, and sitting with my little girl, with my little child, Martha, the little Martha Glory of 7, 8, 9 years old, and loving her and telling her how proud of her I am, and how important she was to me then, because she made it through. Regardless of the mindsets, the habits, the things that she had to become in order to survive, she made it through. And I'm just so proud of her. Healing your little girl or little boy, or what he was sharing, that he has had to really sit with his younger self and had to forgive him, and had to be his biggest cheerleader, and had to affirm that he is all that he was ever meant to be, because he has done the work to sit in the darkness. And so it really was almost like an in your face after the sermon, and then walking out and having that conversation in the lobby of like, no, yes, this is exactly who God has created me to be. And I get to enjoy what that means, but it is who I am. I want to be a servant to others. I want to see the value in each person that crosses my path. I want to see them through the lens that God sees them, that God sees me. I want to only look through that lens, because that's the only lens that really matters. Who does your creator say you are? Right? That's the lens that I want to feel in the depths of my soul about myself. And it's a intentional surrender every single day of understanding what that means for me, because life is going to continue to throw challenges. Life is going to continue to have ebbs and flows. And there's some days that you're going to question, could this really be? Is it going to be always this hard? And the answer is no. I've overcome every single hardest thing that I've ever been through. And so have you. So have you. I want you to sit with that. I want you to feel the reality of, you have made it through every single hardest thing that you have ever been through. Those things did not kill you. Those things did not take away from who you were becoming. They are part of your story, but they don't have to define you. They don't have to be what it is that you are, or what it is that you're becoming, because you've made it through. So looking in the rear view, looking at the hindsight 2020 of, I made it through. I survived that. In my life, it wasn't good enough to just be a survivor. I wanted to have more than just like the label of a trauma survivor or a cult survivor. I wanted to be more than that. So in my book, in my book, Glory Going All In, I talk about cult survivor to courageous warrior. What does that mean? It means that I wasn't okay with just surviving. I didn't want to get stuck in just surviving. I wanted to do something with that. I wanted to become a courageous warrior for a mission and a vision that God's called, put a calling on my life, and that God's called for me to become. And every day I remember and I focus on that mission and vision in my own life. So I want to circle back to how I started the episode and talking about my healing journey. And my healing journey over the last 14 years has been arduous. It's been challenging, but it's also been the best work that I've ever done and the work that I'm most proud of, because a healing journey can break you as well as the trauma can break you, because there are going to be times that you're just like, this is too hard to have to go back to those dark places, those places of yuck, those places of pain, those places of trauma, to forgive, to heal, to step above, to release, right? There is times where you're like, is this all worth it? This is too hard. But the end results is that you get to never have to carry that load again. You get to release it. You get to forgive it. You get to move through it, but you cannot heal it if you don't feel it. You have to feel the emotion. You have to feel the pain. You have to feel the yuck in order to truly release it, to truly let it go, to truly like detangle it from the fibers of your own existence. You have to feel it. At least that's been my experience. And I don't know anybody else that's been through trauma that wouldn't agree with that. But on my healing journey, I've had to ask for help. I've had to incorporate many modalities into my life in order to find the healing that I so desperately needed when my whole life was falling apart about 15 years ago. I was severely overweight. I had gastrointestinal issues. I had migraines. I had PTSD, complex PTSD. I had chronic neck pain, chronic back pain, migraines, and I lived my life in pain, in physical, agonizing pain. And what I came to understand is that that was actually an outward manifestation of an internal problem. And that internal problem was that I had not addressed the trauma of the first 26 years of my life. And I was creating more trauma in my existing life because I didn't have the tools to navigate real life because of the cult, because of the experiences that I had had. I wasn't equipped to deal with challenges. I wasn't equipped to deal with tough conversations between me and my ex-husband. I wasn't equipped to have difficult conversations with my family. I wasn't equipped to set up boundaries for myself, for others. I wasn't equipped to navigate when life would spin things out of control, or when my decisions spun things out of control, because I was creating everything that I had ever been through again, because we become what we think we are. We become our thoughts. We become our mindsets. We become our words, right? So I ran around talking chaos. So I created chaos. I went around talking about how ugly I was, or how fat I was, or how I didn't like myself, and how could anybody like me? So I created that. I created, the protection weight that I put on was a protection against letting people too close to me, because I didn't know how to deal with my trauma. So when I started to discover tools, when I just started to discover how important our words are, our thoughts are, our habits are, our mindset is, I started understanding how interconnected our healing is as well as our trauma. So understanding that that trauma, sorry, is stored on a cellular level in our bodies made so much sense to me. And when I first heard that, I was like, that's got to be my problem, because um, prior to that being like given to me, or me being able to hear that and see that, that was in a somatics class that I had for my continuing education for my massage therapy degree. I didn't understand why my physical body was falling apart at only 30 some years of age. Why did I have all of these diagnoses? And I had so many diagnoses. And every time that I went to a healthcare provider or a specialist, they looked at me from their scope of practice and they gave me another label. They gave me another diagnosis. They wanted me to take another pill. Nobody looked at me from the big picture view of Martha, of my past, of my present. They just looked at me from their scope. And so when I went to that class and was like shown, no, that's trauma stored on a cellular level, is the reason that I'm having these physical manifestations. I then had like an aha moment of, okay, well, then if that's the case, how do I get to that cellular level to heal that? And so I took a long journey through many different modalities, and I had to become my own advocate. I had to say, no, I don't want to numb. I don't want to run any longer. I don't want to shield. I don't want to protect. I want to get to the root cause of what is making my body fall apart at such a young age. And so that led me to modalities such as EMDR, cranial sacral therapy, biofeedback, neurofeedback, all of these, cognitive therapy, all of these modalities that made me go in, made me focus on the trauma, made me focus on healing those things that had stored on that cellular level, in order to release them, in order to start to feel better in my physical body. So that's been a long journey for me over the last 14 years, and I stuck to it. So many times I wanted to quit. So many times I wanted to say, this is too hard. There's too much back there. And what I also fell into is that I have black holes of memories. And if you have been through extreme trauma, you understand what I'm talking about. There are just places in your memory that you cannot go back to, and you cannot retrieve information. You cannot retrieve memories. It's like it's locked so tightly. And as I did these modalities that went inside and made me do that work to uncover, I did get some clarity on some of these black holes. But even 14 years in, I still have black holes. I'll have conversations with my siblings or with my parents or with my friends, and I cannot remember things that they talk about because I don't have access to those memories. And what I talk to other clients about when they express this and they're frustrated by this is like, our mind is like a filing cabinet. And when we have trauma, it takes up so much room in that filing cabinet that it has to push other things out. And so you no longer can retrieve them because they've been pushed either so far to the back of that filing cabinet, or they've just been erased because there's too much trauma that's taken up too much room, and that it's pushed those other memories out, away, or deleted them altogether. And that's weird. That's like, it was hard for me to understand that. But because I had experienced so much trauma at such a young age, that I now understand my mind was just trying to keep me sane. My mind was trying to keep me from going like manic or crazy or having a nervous breakdown at a young age because of the amount of trauma that I experienced. And so my mind and my consciousness had to push things out that no longer mattered to make room for all of those trauma memories, right? And what I also came to understand is that there's a lot of details about my own trauma that I have no access to because they were too painful. And so my consciousness said, we don't need to access that again. It's too painful. It hurts too bad. We don't, that's not helping us. So my consciousness, like Control Alt Delete, black screen, I don't have access to even some of my most traumatic details of some of the most traumatic episodes that I experienced in my life. What I've come to understand is that's okay. I can heal without having to access the minute details of the traumas or of memories that may matter to my family or my siblings or things like that. I don't have to have access to all of that in order to heal for me. And so I've had to give myself grace and being like, if I don't have access to it, I don't have access to it. And that's okay. I'm going to continue this healing journey. I'm going to continue to do what I can to continue to heal myself. So now that I can be in a place to help coach and, you know, hold others accountable on their own healing journey for whatever that looks like for them. So about 3 years ago, as I was really digging even more deeply into understanding who I was becoming, and what that was going to look like for me in the future, God really put it on my heart that it was time for me to start giving back. It was time for me to start helping others to understand their value. It was my turn to start helping others understand they are not defined by their experiences. They are not defined by their traumas. They are not defined by their most painful moments. They can choose a different identity. They can rewrite their story. They can change the narrative, whatever that narrative is. We have that choice. It is accessible to us because every single moment is a choice. Every single word that we let out of our mouth is a choice. Single thought that we allow to circulate and gain momentum is a choice, for either good or bad. It is a choice. And I hear clients tell me all the time, I can't control my thoughts. It's always, telling me I'm not good enough, or I'm this or I'm that. And I'm like, you do have the choice. You can interrupt that thought pattern at any time and say, no, I choose not to believe this right about myself. And it stops here. You are no longer going to tell me that I'm not good enough. You are no longer going to tell me that I'm fat. You are no longer going to tell me that I'm worthless, or that I'm going to amount to nothing, or that I am my diagnosis is. I no longer accept that. And when we interrupt our own thought patterns, almost in the third person talking to ourselves, it gets our own attention. And we're like, oh, I just interrupted that. If I can interrupt it, I can continue to flex that muscle and continue to interrupt it. And then suddenly you find I'm having way less intrusive thoughts. I'm having way less negative thoughts about myself. And what I found is when I started having less negative thoughts about myself, I also started having more grace and less negative thoughts for others, which was cool, right? Because everything's so interconnected. Everything is so it's profoundly amazing how interconnected all of this is, and how we are as a human race are so interconnected with one another. That's why it's important to see people's value rather than their brokenness, rather than their pain, rather than their diagnoses, right? It's so much more important to see their value, because when we see their value, we are seeing them through the lens of their creator. We are seeing them through the lens of their profound purpose, of their mission, of what's possible for them when we see their value versus seeing their pain, seeing their brokenness, seeing their trauma. And so it was really on my heart to share about my own healing journey. But then when I was at church this morning and heard that message, it was just more edified how important it is to be able to hold that space for others, understanding that, they have control and they are valuable. They are valuable to themselves, to their families, to the community, but most important, they're valuable to their creator, and their creator knows what they're capable of. I'm still discovering what I'm capable of. And if you're watching this, you're probably still discovering what you're capable of. But as we continue to show up in that place of service, of that place of servitude, of understanding that when we are able to find something that is good, is true, is important, giving it away and teaching others is the next step, is becoming the servant, becoming, giving that service and understanding that you're doing humanity a disservice when you don't give away the lessons that you've learned. You don't help others grow. You're doing humanity as a whole a disservice. And so I just, I thank you for watching. I thank you for being here. I thank you for tuning in every Thursday at 7 p.m. to continue to support Let Glory Shine. I'm so grateful for all of the positive feedback that I've received since starting this show in May, and all of the guests that I have booked and logged to record. I'm just so excited, and I'm just so humbled to see what God's doing with this show and what God's doing with every guest that I get to have on this show. It's a fun ride, and it's the ultimate service. It's the ultimate, the ultimate value of understanding that each of the people that I get to interview on this show sees themselves as valuable, and now they are helping others to find their own value and not their brokenness, not to focus on brokenness, not to focus on their trauma, not to focus on their pain, not to focus where they're stuck now, but to see the value that they are in the sight of God. And when you embody that, you yourself will become a better version of yourself. So thank you for tuning in once again. I always ask my guest, what does it mean to let your glory shine? And I've never answered that for myself on an episode. And so I want to answer that here today. So what it means to let my glory shine is to understand that I am in the becoming of my own glory, and being able to shine my own glory means being authentically myself. And that means that sometimes I'm going to be overwhelmed. I'm going to be scared. I'm going to be frightened, but it's never going to stop me, because I know who God says I am, and I know who God says I'm becoming. And so I may have to feel the overwhelm. I may have to feel the pain of the moment, but I'm not going to unpack my bags there, and I'm not going to get stuck there. That's what it means to let my glory shine. Until next time, I love y'all. Let your glory shine.
Let glory shine. From the ashes I rise. Every scar a story, every tear baptized. This is my freedom, this is my climb. Let glory shine, it's the power inside. This is your prosperity. Dreams align with grace, abundance flows like rivers. You've stepped into your place. Rise, reign, and remember, you were born to shine.
We hope you enjoyed today's show on Prospera TV Network. Make it a point to visit us on YouTube and catch all your favorite shows anytime you want. Interested in hosting a show of your own? Or advertising your business on our network? Contact Elena Rodriguez.